Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about everything you need to know about visas when you're doing full-time travel. We are Ali and Rob, and this is Grounded Life Finances.
Yeah, this can come as a surprise to a lot of people that you actually need to have a visa strategy for doing full-time travel, because you can't just show up to any country that you want and stay for 6 months or a year. Now, a lot of people have maybe only experienced going to Mexico or going to Europe, and those are pretty easy to go to on vacation because they're just going to let you in, no hassle, let you back out. But if you were to try to stay for a year, it would be a completely different story. So we're going to go over that and tell you what you need to know. Each country is going to be different, so we're going to list them out here, tell you what the specifications are for each country. And also know that they call it all different things. Some of them are visa exempt, which means you don't need a visa. Some of them are visa on arrival, which means you do need a visa, but they just give it to you right when you show up with no questions asked. For our purposes here, we're not going to distinguish between those two things because it doesn't really matter. You show up, you're getting in. There are other countries where you actually need to apply for a visa on the computer a month before you go there. That's the one you need to know. And so we're going to make a distinction when that is the case. Now, it's very important also to plan this out well in advance so that you don't get caught needing to fly all over the world, right?
Exactly. You want to time these so that you can go from one place to the next and they are close together, and you can string a long stay overseas if you want to by putting countries that are close proximity to each other that you can stay longer together on a trip. The other thing also to keep in mind is that all of this information can change at any time. Quite a few of these have been the same for quite some time, but some of these change often. So just always check before you purchase a flight what the requirements are and how long and all that kind of stuff before you book accommodations, before you book flights. Just because you can buy a flight to a place doesn't mean that you can get into that country.
Correct. So the next qualifier is that we're American, this is for Americans with a U.S. passport. If you're from another country, it's going to be different because every country gets a different amount of time in every other country. And so that's just the way it is. So let's start with some of the countries, how long you can get in, and some of these you're going to want to stay longer than others, and some of them are going to be different. So let's just jump in. We're in Japan right now. We'll start there. In Japan, you can get in for 90 days, and then after that, you need to leave. So 90 days is it for Japan. That's actually pretty good. That's on the higher end of what you can do. Yeah,
that's a more generous stay. In general, for the most part, usually it's about 30 days. So a 90-day stay is actually extremely generous.
Yeah. If you're traveling full-time, though, 90 days in Japan can start to get expensive. So you may want to be leaving after 60 days anyway. Next one up on the list is going to be Thailand. That's a straight 30 days when you arrive. And then once you're in the country, you can extend it for another 30 days. Now this one is good to take note of because Thailand is probably the best country to go to if you're a full-time traveler. But they do have this 30-day limit, and then you can extend it another 30 days. They also don't want you jumping in and out of the country very often. So you cannot just leave the country, come back, leave the country, come back. You can't do that all year. You're gonna get
flagged
and stopped from doing that.
Passport control does not like that, and they do keep track of it. You think they're not keeping track of it? They're keeping track of it.
So there's a couple of things you can do though if you're 50 or over and you wanted to stay. Let's say you want to stay in Thailand 9 months. If you're 50 or over, you can get a retirement visa, and that allows you a year. So that's a good option. If you're not 50 or over, your options get pretty limited, but you can buy an elite visa, and an elite visa will get you either a 5 or 10-year visa at a cost of, I think the last time I looked at it, it was about $20,000 US per couple. So basically for $4,000 a year, we could both get a visa, and you just pay for that no questions asked. For 5 years, you have a visa. Sounds like a lot of money, but when you break it down per month, it's a little over $300 per month. You're going to save that much money just being in Thailand and not having to fly out of the country, switch countries, buy a flight, buy a hotel. It actually is not a bad deal.
And paying for the extension too, because you get, it's, you know, it's free coming in, but the 30-day extension will cost you. And then if you're paying, you know, you pay, let's say you can't do this, but let's say you're paying that every month. I mean, that adds up real quick.
Yeah, 30-day extension is 1,900 baht, which is around $60 or so. So for each person, it's $120 every time you extend. That does add up. So if we weren't 50, we would probably look into that elite visa option. Since we are 50, we can just go for the retirement if we want to do that. Next one up is Vietnam, and Vietnam is changing. That's one of the ones that's changing. For a long time, it's been 30 days now, and as of August 15th of 2023, it's going to be 90 days. But you do need to apply for this one ahead of time. You actually go on their website, you have to submit your information, where you're going to be, where you're going to stay, and pay a $25 fee. That could change with the 90-day visa. That's for the 30-day. And then about 3 business days later, they'll tell you if you're approved or not. You print that out and you bring it with you to get into the country.
Yeah, so that's great that they're extending it. I think it's something that expats have been lobbying for a while, because it's one of the countries where you could do 30 in and then go out and then come back in and get another 30, go out, come back in, get another 30. Again, that adds up really quickly flying out and into a country. I mean, yeah, the flights you can probably get for fairly inexpensive, $60 to $80, maybe less. But again, there's the hassle of leaving, coming back, leaving, coming back. 90-day visa is really going to be quite good.
Yep. Next up on the list we have Malaysia. That's going to be 90 days. Pretty easy process there. We've done that. Colombia is also 90 days, and you can extend for another 90 days once you're in the country, so you can get basically 6 months there. Mexico is a little bit tricky. It's up to 180 days, but there are reports where you don't just get a straight 180, you get whatever you say you're going to be there for. So
yeah, and sometimes they give you even less. I mean, they ask you at the passport control, and sometimes you get less. It just depends. Sometimes the border agent doesn't want to change, you know, the numbers or whatever the case may be, and they just stamp you whatever they've got on their stamp, and that's what you're getting, unless, you know, you say something right away. So that one can be tricky because you don't know exactly what they're going to give you until they actually stamp you in.
Indonesia is going to be 30 days. And the next one is Europe. This is just covering all of Europe. Europe has a thing called Schengen, which there are countries that are in Schengen, there are countries that are not in Schengen. And basically for Europe, you can look up which ones are in and out. If it's a Schengen country, you're going to get 90 days out of 180 days. But all the countries count together. So if you go to one country for 60 days, another country for 30, you have to leave Europe for another 90. And so they kind of count together. Now there are ways you can get around that, because a couple of the countries are not in the Schengen. So if you want to do 6 months in Europe, for 3 of the months you have to be in a non-Schengen country. So that's a little confusing, but it does work. We have been to Europe
done it.
for 6 months, and you can just, the thing is you have to stay in non-Schengen countries for 3 of those months. Now, probably the country with the longest visa is the country of Georgia. That one you can get for 1 year, and that is, yeah, that's about the longest one I've ever seen.
Yes, and it's kind of a sleeper country. I mean, there's a lot you can do there. It's got a lot of culture. It's got a huge expat community there, especially in Tbilisi. So it's definitely one of the most generous at giving you a year of stay.
And then we've got Cambodia, which is 30 days, and you can extend for another 30 days. So as we're talking about putting together a little plan, you kind of want to group these by continent. So when you're talking about Southeast Asia, the best thing to do is probably to do Thailand. You get your 30 days, you can extend 30 days, that's 2 months. Then you can do Vietnam for 3 months. That's 5 months. Then you throw in Malaysia, Indonesia, or Cambodia for a couple months. You can get up to 6, 7, 8 months right there pretty easily. Same thing kind of applies to Colombia and Mexico. Go do those together. When you're going to go to Europe, go do 6 months in Europe, 3 in a Schengen country, 3 not in a Schengen country. Because that way you can travel by train. You can travel by short flight, which is going to be a lot cheaper. What you don't want to do is to fly to Japan, then fly to Colombia, then fly to Turkey, because it's $1,000 flight and 12 time zones every time you do it.
Exactly. It's less hassle too, and less stress on your body as well, and lets you see more in a shorter amount of time. Like you said, you're able to then travel by train from country to country, or get those short flights that are $60 from one to the next. But if you're hopping continents, that's going to be a much bigger challenge and much more expensive too, if you're trying to keep a rein on the finances, right?
Yeah. We also definitely recommend staying in these countries for as long as you want, or as long as you're allowed, because the less you move around, the cheaper it's going to be. You're going to be able to stay in an Airbnb, and if you stay over 28 days, you'll get a monthly discount for that generally from most hosts. So take advantage of that and just stay. If you're doing this type of lifestyle, you've got a lot of time anyway. You got nowhere to go, so enjoy the countries and see a little bit more of each one.
Take your time. Take your time and kind of just take it all in. We did do a video on full-time travel housing options, so make sure you guys go check that one out too. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope this was helpful to you. If you have questions about this, go ahead and leave those down in the comment section. Give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe and share this video.